So for this exercise I want to talk about the upper leg. So we're looking at the relationship between the quads and the hamstrings and the glutes and the hip flexors. Okay, you will often find that predominantly most athletes, if they struggle from range of motion, certainly in the hips, will be very tight they'll overload the quads, very tight in the hamstrings, hip flexors very tight, glutes probably don't fire too well. And you'll often see a lot of hamstring injuries because the hamstring doesn't fire because it's inhibited by the hip flexors and the quads. Also quite a lot of lower back pain can be caused by overfiring quads and hip flexors. So first off I'm going to show you an excellent mobilizer to really open up the hips and certainly the hip flexors and certainly the quads. So what we do, we kneel down. Okay, one leg forwards, one leg back with the toes over. Okay, that's really important. The toes stay flexed and pressed against the floor. In this position, squeeze the glutes. This is a PNF stretch, and you should feel just by doing that. You might want to pull the shoulders back a little bit. By squeezing the glute, you'll feel it opening up that hip flexors. What we can do now, we can just start pushing the hips forwards. Okay. And again, you should feel an increased load of stretch coming through that hip flexor on that left leg and into the quads. What we could do now is we can start driving a bit more thoracic extension. And we can start playing around with adding in rotation, one way, rotation the other way, all the time. Keeping that glute squeeze. We're going to add in a few lateral movements. And we can start adding combinations. And the whole time you should feel that stretch opening up. We can also do it. So in that position, we can drive a little bit of frontal plane motion into the hips. And with that, we could use a pole. We can increase a bit of thoracic mobility there. We could also just roll those hips around one way, roll those hips around the other way, trying to get it to feel as many planes of motion as possible. And again, we could drive the thoracic in that position. If we're not feeling too much of a stretch, we can increase the load on the quads. And all we do by doing that is by raising that back foot up. That's now going to get rec fen stretching a hell of a lot more. And again, engage the glutes and we just drive the same motions throughout. So now if we talked about, that's really going to get the rec fen, so the psoas region, that should all be feeling quite loose now. If we've taken away those tight areas, they can inhibit, like we said, the hamstrings and the glutes. It might be prudent now to do some isolation exercises before then going into some functional work. Isolation exercises for hamstrings, really simple ones. You can do your simple leg curls, both stability ball or foam roller or even TRX. Slide back, hips up, engage, pull in and back, in and back. Really simple exercise, gets the hamstrings going. Okay, we can also take that into doing a few glute bridges as well. So coming up, shoulders back, feet flat, up we come, squeezing the glutes. From this position we could take that into a little bit more of a single leg style, or driving up with one leg, or we can hold one leg in and then come up into that position as well. Okay, so again, a few little isolation exercises for the glutes. Equally, we could do a kind of a Superman style leg raise at the back. If we want to take that now into a little bit more of a functional way, we could go into a single leg Romanian deadlift. So we can Come into that position, soften one leg, back leg straight, shoulders back, and come in, and then come back up. So squeeze in, back leg nice and straight, come back up. Equally we can take that into a full-on Romanian deadlift. Shoulders back, hips back, knees slightly flexed, but not driving forwards. Really important here to keep the shoulders squeezed together. And when you come through, squeezing the glutes. Another way we could do it is bending the legs, dropping in, keeping the shoulders retracted, extend the legs, drive the knees underneath so the back's tall. Extend the legs, drive underneath so the back's tall. So that gives you a few ideas of how to foam roll in as well. We can foam roll the quads. If we were to do that, you can find any type of ball in terms of another release opposed to that kind of stretch. Find a ball, foam roller, tennis ball. When you find your position that you want to flex, okay, drive the knee, the foot up. And that basically acts as an active release on the muscle. There's a much more efficient way of releasing any muscle, certainly by the use of myofascial release. Okay, so that should give you a few ideas of how to loosen up the quads, loosen up the hip flexors, and start engaging the glutes and engaging the hamstrings. It would be worth at this point now to look at a bit more glute development and how to really fire those. Very important in terms of all body stabilisation and as a power unit. And I have a separate video on the glutes, so it's worth checking that out. Thank you.